everyone. Welcome to Snack Chats with TLB Nutrition Therapy. My name is Anna, and I'm one of the team lead dietitians over at TLB.
And I'm Marcie, and I'm another one of the team lead dietitians at TLB.
Yay! Today we are going to be talking about different types of hunger.
Yeah, what do you mean when you say different types?
Yeah. So today we're going to be covering specifically two types of hunger, which are physical and logical hunger. This is pretty different from the way that I think that people tend to think about hunger as we talk about it, either like socially or from like a diet perspective. I think a lot of times people tend to like simplify hunger and just say things like, oh, just eat when you're hungry, right? And a lot of times what they
Right, right.
mean is like um physical, like are you experiencing like physical signs of hunger, which is one of the types of hunger that we'll be talking about today. But we're hoping to get a better idea for like, yeah, like what might be other reasons to eat that aren't just physical signs of hunger.
Yeah, for sure. So, how do you describe physical hunger?
So physical hunger to me is anything that you experience, classic, physically in your body to indicate that you might be hungry. So I think a lot of people might think, hunger pangs, your stomach feeling kind of empty. You might experience, like sounds that your stomach might make.
Mm-hmm.
Other signs of other physical signs of hunger that to me would be maybe a little bit more extreme would be headache, feeling maybe a little bit like brain fogged. I would consider like cravings a physical sign of hunger, right? So yeah, even physical hunger can kind of like look a bunch of different ways.
For sure. What are some things that you think can get in the way of people experiencing physical hunger cues?
Yeah, good question. So I think a number of things can impact attunement to physical hunger cues. Something that I think you and I see a lot when working with clients is, maybe like inconsistent intake. So the body not really knowing when to expect food, and so not being really in like a rhythm of knowing like when to experience hunger, essentially, or like when to start sending those cues. We might also see disruptions in physical attunement to hunger when someone is on, medications that might impact their hunger. So I'm thinking of like stimulant medications or like GLP-1s.
Right.
Also, folks who are maybe like neurodivergent might not really experience what we would call interoceptive cues, which a lot of times relates to um, experiencing cues in your body and like knowing what they're communicating, essentially.
Yeah.
Getting sick can also really get in the way of experiencing physical signs of hunger, right? So, like, if you're feeling like nauseated
Mhm.
from being sick or you're congested,
Right.
right? Like, loss of taste and smell can sometimes happen too. So, illness can really get in the way. And then a lot of times, like mental health disruptions or mental health conditions can really get in the way of attunement to physical signs of hunger. And so that can look like anxiety, depression, even just like big life changes or, experiencing grief or something like a big life disruption basically can really get in the way of a person's attunement to body in general and specifically attunement to maybe like physical signs of hunger.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if someone's wanting to work on that attunement to their body's hunger cues, like what are some ways they can start to work on that?
Yeah. So it'll look different. The outcome of like attunement to physical signs of hunger will probably look different for different people. So not everyone will have the ability to like develop it out to the same degree and like develop out like the same level of attunement. And for some people, physical hunger might never be, the first sign of hunger that they experience. But if someone is really hoping to build out some of that like attunement to physical hunger, um, to me, like the biggest thing is like getting on kind of a really consistent like meal and snack schedule so that your body kind of like learns if your body can learn when to expect food, that is like the easiest way, right? Is like getting on like a pretty solid structure for like your body to know within, a margin of error, like when to expect food, basically, is what I
Yeah,
usually
that makes a lot of
recommend.
sense.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
think is a pretty good segue into the type of hunger that you were going to talk about today, which is logical hunger. So, can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you just said, a lot of factors that can, um, affect our connection to physical hunger cues. And so, even if we're not feeling hungry, we still need to eat and make sure our body's getting food at regular intervals throughout the day. So, we refer to this as logical hunger because we're thinking more logically through what our food needs are instead of relying on physical cues. You might also hear this referred to as eating mechanically, eating functionally. So, um, yeah, just really making sure we're giving our body what it needs at regular frequency throughout the day, even if we're not feeling those classic physical cues.
Oh, sweet. Well, I wonder what some like consequences of not listening to logical hunger, like not eating on a really consistent basis might be.
For sure. So I think we both, worked with a lot of clients where they're coming in and saying that they haven't eaten for an extended period of time because they're not feeling hungry. But a lot of times that can put our body in a pretty depleted state. So they might then, experience really extreme hunger signals of like that brain fog or maybe nausea or really emotionally dysregulated. It's hard to get things done if we get to that point where it kind of catches up with us. And then what can happen too, it's kind of like a pendulum swings the other way. If we get really depleted and then we finally do eat, oftentimes we're going to want to eat more than maybe we would if we weren't so extremely hungry. So we're maybe eating faster than we would normally, or it's harder to listen to those fullness cues. And so, if we're not eating on a regular schedule, it's easier to swing between those two extremes.
Totally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so with maybe for a person who's wanting to implement some like logical hunger like principles into their life, is there anything that you kind of find yourself recommending to people pretty often?
Yeah, so not too different from what you were saying with like a meal schedule for people wanting to work on physical hunger, but for those needing more a logical approach, every 3 to 4-ish hours is a good rule of thumb. Of course, that'll look different for everyone, but it could be like 3 meals and a couple snacks. And a lot of times, folks taking this approach using things like their phone alarms or calendar reminders are really helpful just to have an external cue. Um, One good approach could be like on your phone, maybe you have a distinct alarm sound for meals specifically. So it's different than other alarms you might have. Also work with your own kind of meal scheduler approach. And then also meal support groups can be really helpful. So like we offer them at TLB and then there's others available online and by different organizations. So that could really help with meal accountability. And then I also encourage clients to kind of create a list of their safe foods and drinks that they can reliably consume. And maybe their appetite's low or their interest in food is low, maybe some easy options that are quick to prep or grab and go. And we want to make sure we have easy access to these foods. So at home or at work or in your car, just making sure we have access when we are hitting those meal and snack times.
Totally. Yeah. Well, awesome. I'm glad we got to talk about two of the different types of hunger. I think we're hoping to do probably a few more in like future videos, but yeah, I'm glad that we got to touch on physical and logical today.
Yeah, me too. And as we can see even just these two types of hunger, it's very nuanced and individualized. We definitely encourage folks to talk to their own dietitian about this, or if you're wanting to explore this more, you could always reach out to TLB with a dietitian to explore a lot of these topics.
Totally. Well, thank you, Marcie, for your time, and yeah, see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.